Welcome to the PI show. My name's Harry Nowicki. I'm a PI lawyer with a colleague, Tony Carbone, who's also a PI lawyer. We've both been in the law for over 20 years and we love talking about personal injuries. Tony, the first matter we've got tonight, we're going to talk generally about court cases that proceed against what we call multiple defendants. That is, there needs to be some negligence, and also there might be more than one wrongdoer in a situation. So, and it raises a lot of interesting questions about how litigation is conducted, who's involved. Court cases have a life of their own, and if there are multiple defendants with different law firms, different barristers involved, it often has a life of its own. I know you generally favour cases where there are multiple defendants.
Yeah, it helps if there's a lot of parties involved if you have to go to trial. If you're trying to settle it out of court, it's harder because everyone's blaming each other. But if you're going to court and you've got a judge and a jury or judge alone, I generally prefer multiple defendants because they're all blaming each other, as a rule. It was his fault, not my fault. Yeah, and it's just they start slanging at each other.
The case that sort of focuses this partly is a case that ran in the Supreme Court in Victoria called was Toomey's case.
I was very familiar with this, Harry, because I actually went up there when it was running.
I think it ran in 1997. Yeah, I had a look at it as well. And Toomey was a young man. He was, I think, 26. He was a lacrosse player. He was a very fit sportsman. He and his friends went out to a Bucks night, and at 2 a.m. they came back to where they were staying, some apartments in Hawthorn. His two friends went up the stairs, were wrestling on the landing, and he tried to get past them. One of them bumped him. He fell off the balustrade and fell, I think, over 15 feet.
Fell a long way.
And damaged his back and was a quadriplegic.
He's not a complete quadriplegic, which means that he's almost there.
But he was in a wheelchair, suffered catastrophic injuries. Now, the lawyers who advised the plaintiff in this case, who did they sue?
Well, what happened here was that everyone was sued. The two guys that were wrestling were sued. The owner of the units was sued. The people who constructed the units were sued. The architect was sued. The council was sued, who went out there and inspected the works of the building of the units at the time. So what probably happened was, because of the gravity of his injuries, they would have conducted a pretty thorough investigation pretty early in the piece. They might have sent an investigator and engineer out to the place. They would have got permission from the owner of the premises to get out there and have a look. And at that point in time, they would have established all sorts of things. So then they've gone out there and thought.
And so they started off the claim, I think, in the Supreme Court, of suing everyone involved in the construction of the balustrade. And it turned out the balustrade was about an inch.
6.5 centimetres.
I work in inches.
That's about
Tony.
Probably closer to 3 inches.
3 inches short of what it should have been according to Australian standards. That ultimately the judge had to decide whether the balustrade that was a few inches short contributed to the injury and the damage that occurred.
Well, he did find that.
The judge ultimately found that. It was a matter of they called a lot of biomechanical experts about how the fall occurred. There's a big dispute about where he actually fell. The ultimate finding of the judge was he fell off from the balcony over a balustrade, and if he'd fallen on the stairs going up, he would have no claim. Or he'd have a claim against the two people wrestling, and they mightn't have had any insurance at all.
That's a possibility.
To cover the damage. But ultimately the judge found that he actually got up onto the landing and fell off the balustrade, and then he had to then apportion
The blame to
the
all the different
blame
defendants.
to who was at fault.
What's really sad about this case is, apart from this fellow was very badly injured, brain injury as well. The claim all up, I think, got about $3 million.
So it's $3.2 million in damages.
But the costs were very, very significant because there was 10 parties with, this courtroom, I recall going in there, I think there was 2 sets of bar tables and probably 20 barristers in there. It was just unbelievable. You had to see it. It was extraordinary.
Yeah.
And they had tea and coffee and tea set up outside, and he had his dog with him in court.
Yeah, I saw he had his faithful dog. You know, he was in a wheelchair and he had his dog.
Yeah, it was
sitting
just,
there.
it was specially set up for this case.
And I think the trial went for 57 days, and I think a lot of the time was taken up with the evidence of different defendants.
Different defendants
as you say,
about-
each blamed the other for.
They all blamed each other.
Who's responsible for the balustrade being?
Well, first and foremost, the 2 guys that were fighting played a big part in him falling because they've bumped him and he's gone over the top. Plus, he was also pretty alcoholised. I mean, he had 0.25.
Yeah, they'd been drinking. They'd gone out to a Bucks night, so they'd been drinking. A substantial amount that
So you
night.
got the guy that built the place, who's probably joined the inspector from the council, who gave the final ticket.
There was a mistake really in the building and construction.
That just was passed on. Everyone missed it.
Well, everyone missed it, so that different people blamed different people. The judge ultimately took a sort of common sense approach, which was that the 2 people wrestling, in the first instance, they were awarded
Well, I got 50% against.
50% of the damages
Which
against
was-
them, and the judge said that the 50% of the damage should be just awarded equally amongst the other defendants.
Yeah.
So it sort of was a matter of common sense. A few of the defendants appealed to the Court of Appeal, and
Well, they're the 2 that appealed apparently, and their apportionment of blame was reduced.
the 2 people wrestling.
Yeah, the 2 wrestlers,
So they went down to, I think,
15 each,
15% each.
and the other 20% was lumbered off onto the remaining defendants.
So they all were had to pay out, or their insurer
Harry will go to a break, I think.
had to pay
And,
out the balance of money. We're coming to a break, and we'll be taking up this topic after the break.